Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Nerds in the Morning. Today's topic, we are going to be talking about our favorite video games. So, to start out, Chris Muller, what's your favorite video game?
This is a tricky question for me. It's always kind of been a toss-up between a few, but after thinking about it for a while, I finally decided Banjo-Kazooie on the Nintendo 64.
Good game.
So, when you play a game growing up, obviously, a lot of times when you look back, you think, well, did nostalgia really affect, like, a lot of my decisions? But I've gone back, I've replayed it. It's still a really good game, classic platforming. But I think one of the reasons why Banjo-Kazooie kind of stands out for me is actually a bit of an accident. In the game, there's a feature called Stop and Swap, where essentially, because of the way that the 64 cartridge is stored in memory, you're going to be able to turn the game off, and then for like 20 seconds or something, I guess the short-term memory, I don't exactly know how it works, but the point is, you're supposed to be able to stop the game, take it out, put a new game in, and they were going to do that for Banjo-Tooie, but Nintendo changed the models on the 64 so that that 20-second delay actually turned into like 1 second. So at the last minute, Rare had to scrap a whole bunch of stuff. So anyway, the point is there's all these literal Easter eggs inside the game as well as an ice key that, like, we never really knew what they did. They kind of did some stuff in Banjo-Tooie, like Kazooie could turn into a dragon.
Yeah.
But the point is there are these secrets that we never got answers to. And I think that's what kind of made that game special, because for years later, I'd be on, like, internet forums. There was actually one in particular called the Rare Witch Project, which was, a pun or whatever, play on words on the Blair Witch Project. But they discovered, like, all these cheats years later to, like, access some of these eggs that you couldn't even, like, see any other way. Mm-hmm. So I guess, long story short, Banjo-Kazooie, not only was it a fantastic game that was really fun, it had some secrets that were never answered that made it even better.
Yeah, it's a shame. Andy, what's your favorite video game?
My favorite video game would have to be Skyrim, the Elder Scrolls series.
Nice.
I mean, I'm sure that's probably a lot of people's favorite games, but I was never really into that genre until Game of Thrones and then Skyrim and all that sort of... I jumped into that, and just the whole idea of exploring this huge dynamic world where there's just random things going on. You could just walk from one end to the map of the other with a particular goal in mind, and then 50 things distract you along the way. It's just... everything about it. The storyline was great. I thought the graphics were amazing, and just that's really all I have to say about that. I mean,
it's a good game.
Yeah.
Well, my favorite video game has been for a long time Final Fantasy VIII. When I was younger, it was 6, and then I liked 7, but like everybody was like 7, Final Fantasy 7.
So Richie's a hipster, and he's like, I can't like 7. Everybody else likes 7. I gotta be original.
No, I mean that's not the only. It is not.
The
No, it is not the best Final Fantasy game. In my opinion, 8 blew 7 out of the water in every respect. A lot of people are like, I don't get the junction system. It just
but I didn't get that. I didn't get it.
See, I like complicated stuff like that, so for me it was good. All right, moving on to the sad part. Chris, what is the game that you that disappointed you the
broke
most?
my heart?
Yeah.
Well, staying on the theme of Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Kazooie was fantastic. Banjo-Tooie was also great. And then there's Nuts and Bolts on the 360. And basically, I'm not going to go into super detail because there's a video by a guy named JonTron where it's the best critique that there is. But long story short, they promised us the continuation of this amazing franchise, and we got Legos and car racing with Banjo slapped on it.
Yeah.
Basically, that broke my heart, and sadly, I would be very surprised if Rare ever went back and made a true sequel. If they did, that would be amazing, but Nuts and Bolts was the biggest disappointment ever.
Andy, disappointing?
Yeah, I was always a fan of couch co-op games ever since Resident Evil 5. Just super fun to play with somebody in the same household. And then I was really excited. I was working on a movie with you, steampunk movie theme, which was awesome. I'm in this whole mind, steampunk, and then I see one of the Sony magazines, this game called Damnation, and it's steampunk themed, and it's supposed to have all this vertical play, and it's co-op. So I'm super excited for it. We went down, day it was released, bought 2 copies. They're like $60 each, and that was the worst 20 minutes of my life. we put it on, and it was kind of interesting. It looked nice, but the exploring was just, if you got too far ahead of your partner, they would teleport. So it's like, you guys are exploring this area. The gunplay was just terrible. And I think the worst part of it is where I just spent $120, and I played it for about 30 minutes.
Wow.
And then I just put it away. That was it.
Man,
Traded it right away.
For me, like Chris with the Banjo-Kazooie, my most disappointing game, I guess, would have to be Final Fantasy 13. And I know a lot of people like that game. For me, that was just like, it was supposed to be the comeback of like all these great things, and it was so linear, and it was so like...
Isn't there a Wiki Richie on that?
There's actually, I did actually do an entire Wiki Richie back when I was doing Wiki Richies on it, and there was even, I think, a YouTube News on it at one point too.
So if you want Richie's detailed opinion on what he really thinks about it, check the description, and there's probably a link to
probably
the
put those down there. But yeah, I really was disappointed in 13. All right, bringing it back full circle. So Chris, what game are you looking forward to the most?
Well, I can't say Banjo 3E because that probably will never come.
Yeah.
So Pokemon X and Y. I love the Pokemon franchise. I've played almost every single generation, and that's actually coming out really soon.
Yeah,
I just need to get a 3DS. But I actually just
or a 2DS.
Or a 2DS. But I was going to say... Nintendo or Game Freak or whoever's in charge of the franchise, they just made an anime called Pokemon Origins, which was a remake, but it was based on the games Red and Blue. So the trainer wasn't Ash, his name was Red. And it was really cool because it was like this toss back to Generation 1, but at the very end, I don't want to spoil it, but there's this very clever tie-in to the new generation, X and Y. So I watched that, and it was so perfect because Nintendo was like, hey, old gamers, you know how you guys liked the original Pokemon and you probably haven't played for a long time? Well, buy X and Y. And I was like, Nintendo, your marketing campaign worked great for me. So I was already excited about the game. Now I'm more excited. So watch Pokemon Origins, and X and Y is going to be fantastic. It's in 3D.
All right.
Real 3D.
3D! Andy, what is the game you're looking forward to?
Surprise, it's going to be Elder Scrolls Online. No idea. I hope it's not a disappointment, but from what I've seen so far and the graphics and some really small gameplay video, it looks like it's basically just like Skyrim, but with all the realms, and there's just people out there. And I'll do some reading that you can actually solo everything if you want, but of course grouping with people, just like every MMO, grouping with people will give you more access to certain missions and stuff, and things you can't do on your own. But just the whole idea of being in that world, and I hope that it's the same kind of dynamic play, and it's not like everything's an instance, like some RPGs are, or some MMOs. So hopefully, I've been playing Final Fantasy online, and that's pretty cool. And it's pretty much just you go out in open world and just kill things or do missions like that. So hopefully it's the same, and it looks just as good, and it's not buggy and.
Yeah.
Hope so.
Hope so, because I was going to say Bethesda. It is Bethesda.
It
is Bethesda. Yeah, they have a lot of glitches in a lot of their games.
Yeah,
like Fallout stuff too.
When Skyrim came out, of course, for the PS3, that's what I played it on, and you would just get these crazy dragon glitches and just something with the RAM, or I don't know how it was, but it was so frustrating. But I loved it so much.
Yeah. That
I just played through it. I just have to reset it and start again.
Well, I'm really looking forward to Burial at Sea, the next big BioShock DLC, because I really like the first two BioShock games. I even like BioShock 2. And I loved Infinite, but, I was like, oh, I really, wish we could go back to Rapture, especially during the part in Rapture before everything went to hell, because I liked in Infinite how it kind of showed Columbia before things went to hell, and you got to interact with the people there, and I was like, they should really do that with Rapture, and so that's pretty much what this is.
That's awesome.
So, I Burial at Sea. Well, now on to the last part of our segment today, where I will be reading off your answers from last week. I asked you what was your favorite character, part, or segment of Breaking Bad, and why. And here are the 5 answers that I liked the most. Razman Khalif said, my favorite character in Breaking Bad was Jesse. He was a useless junkie at the beginning, but throughout the whole series he kept growing and changing for the better. I saw an interview with Vince Gilligan saying that he originally intended to kill off Jesse in Season 2, but decided to keep him since Aaron Paul was such a good actor. I really could relate to Jesse because even though he seems like a punk, he really has a good heart. I couldn't relate to Walt's character because he's irrational. Yeah, I had heard the same thing, that they tried to kill off Jesse at the beginning of the show, and I was like, wow, it's like that would have changed the show completely. So
Yeah, he was such a big part of the whole series.
yeah, so it's
Yeah.
kind of it's hard
It's
to
a good thing
imagine.
they kept him.
It's hard to imagine Breaking Bad without him that whole
Yeah, no
time.
kidding.
Would have been crazy. Jira Mobile says the most riveting and heart-pounding sequence to me was the train heist in Dead Fright in season 5. Jesse's idea to steal methylamine while remaining undetected kept my eyes super glued to the screen. I've never seen a show take on a scenario like this, and I really must praise how well shot the sequence is too. Long live Breaking Bad. That was a good scene.
That was amazing. The tension. Oh yeah, I was on the edge of my seat.
And just when you think they got away with it with no problems.
Oh man.
Lord of the Jimmy said, my favorite moment from Breaking Bad is when Walt goes to meet Tuco for the first time. The episode, Crazy Handful of Nothing, was actually the first episode I saw. So much tension, and we really see a transformation from Walt to Heisenberg. Not to mention the debut of his shaved head badass look and his ability to handle himself against Tuco, one of my favorite characters, with chemistry as his weapon. The final shot of him screaming in the car is a perfect ending to this classic scene. So
Yeah, that scene stuck with me too. That was sort of when you knew what was about to happen.
like this got real.
Yeah.
Kadaj says, I like Hank. At first he was critically dedicated to his job in finding Heisenberg. Then he lost, he couldn't walk, and became really depressed. Near the end, he was back to being the same old Hank, but he was even more dedicated to the case after finding out Walt was Heisenberg. And in the middle of it, he just got this random obsession with minerals, and that became the center of the show. So, I really liked Hank's,
Yeah, the end of that was pretty upsetting because you kind of really felt for him because he knew he was right, even though he was against what the Walt was doing.
And when he was collecting those minerals, you knew he had hit rock bottom.
Jeez, Richie, they're not rocks, they're minerals.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Wu Ho Jeha says, when Jesse buys the house from his parents, but they don't know yet, and they're like, Jesse, what are you doing? And he's like, I bought the place. Why? Well, I shouldn't have to explain. The moment explains itself.
That was a cool scene. After all the tension that Jesse had with his parents, and then kind of tricking him like that. Well, I guess it wasn't a trick, but he led them on, because they're like, what are you doing here? Hey, this is my place, y'all.
Yeah. Well, that's the end of Nerds in the Morning. Check us out next week. I have a question for you, of course, which is, inevitably, what is your favorite video game and why? Leave it in the comments below, and I'll pick my 5 favorite for next week. Don't forget to get your Richalvarez t-shirts. The link is in the description below. Get them from District Lines. And have a wonderful day. Thank you very much, guys.
Adios.